Welcome to the Freedom Project podcast. My name is Tom Foxley. Today, I'm kind of taking a request, if that's a thing. A kind of a follower, someone who listens to the show, reached out and said, "Hey Tom, I'd love to hear you explain something that you have kind of mentioned quite a few times, and go into more detail on it." And it's this quote. The idea is, or the quote is, "Your next level is found through the emotion that you want to feel least." Okay, so the path to the quickest. I've mentioned it in a few different ways. I've varied it in a few ways, which is something along the lines of the emotion you want to feel least is the one that you most need to feel, or the quickest way to your next level in life is through the emotion you least want to feel. Variations of that. But the key thing that comes up over and over again is, well, there's an emotion you don't want to feel, and that is the path that you need to take. And I thought I'd just go into a little bit more detail on exactly how that can happen, and maybe even share my own story. So everything that us humans do is to feel an emotion or to not feel an emotion. Is to go towards or away from a psychological sensation. The example I gave this morning to a client was, we're talking about the monk who was protesting in Tiananmen Square, who set himself alight in front of the tank. And his suffering didn't occur because he didn't attach, he'd learned through years and years of meditation how not to attach a story to the physical sensation of pain. So that tells us we can have two things. There is the pain, which is a physical sensation, and then there is the story and the suffering that we attach to it because of that story. So what does this mean for you? Because I don't want you to set yourself on fire in front of a tank at all. This means that everything that you are driven to do is made, or the decision is made, because you're going towards an emotion or you don't want to feel an emotion. So if I don't want to feel anger, if I don't trust myself feeling anger, I will do anything possible to not feel anger. And what that could mean is that I delay or refuse to go into any environment that could invite anger. And more specifically, there'll be certain problems where the only solution is provided by the clarity and the wisdom of anger. For years, I didn't let myself feel anger. And the reason for that is my kind of family upbringing, my childhood, the kind of the culture that I was brought up in as a familial culture was one where anger wasn't tolerated. It was one of passivity and pacifism, where the idea was, hey, we're going to rise above this level of anger. We're not going to go into this because it's going to devalue us and it's going to stop you from making clear decisions, and it's hurtful to someone else. So that was the major assumption there, that anger would always hurt someone. And that meant that on an immediate basis, as a kid, when I got bullied, I would not let myself feel anger, which was the exact correct emotion at that time, because I needed to fight back for myself. And that led to me getting hurt physically and emotionally. And because I didn't trust that anger, I had no practice in channeling it and using it. And in fact, I just explained away the kind of the bullying and the pain that came along with that. Now, that was childhood. How does that shape me going forwards? Well, for years beyond that, I still mistrusted anger. In fact, I was known as the calm guy, and I saw it as a really flattering compliment that I was the calm guy, the one that didn't get riled and could always be found to be present and calm. However, there were many things going on in my life where anger was the solution. I needed to learn to once more fight for myself, to push back beyond my limitations. And anger is an emotion that is there to encourage you to set and enforce boundaries, either in a defensive or assertive manner. So anger has a purpose. If you think about emotions as an evolutionary tool, like why did we evolve emotions? Then the emotion is a tactic, a technique that you can deploy. Just like bipedalism, the ability to walk on two legs, it serves a purpose. Same thing with anger, same thing with sadness, same thing with fear, same thing with joy, same thing with frustration. And the more we do not permit ourselves to feel that emotion, the more stuck we become. And getting unstuck, reaching your next level, relies on you feeling that emotion. And that can feel, like for me, feeling anger was terrifying to begin with. Actually, it forced itself out. I was rubbish at figuring this out. I thought that a lot of mental performance was about finding clarity, being stoic, moving beyond my emotions. So I kind of pushed my emotions down even further. I was like, if I can think without my emotions, if I can mistrust them enough to push, or to mistrust them enough to get beyond them, then I can make clear, good decisions. It was like a misinterpretation of, and a literal interpretation of a lot of Stoicism. Now, that all came like raging out in one example. And then I had to learn to like temper that. It was almost like someone had opened the tap of the faucet all the way out. And then I had to kind of rein it back into where it was appropriate, because there's so much built up pressure. What that meant is that I suddenly felt furious with everything. And it was a really uncomfortable time to be around me, I'm guessing. Actually, I know it was an uncomfortable time to be around me. And I probably wasn't my best self. But I began getting clarity on what I needed to do in my life. I began getting clarity on how to take steps forwards, to what to do with my business, what to do with my relationships, who I wanted to be, and most importantly, who I really am. I stopped trying to be someone else to make the right call and started trusting my emotions. Your emotions are there to guide you. And if you kink the garden hose of emotions, that pressure will build up and it will either transform into some other emotion. So it will come out in, I was speaking to someone the other day who shall remain nameless at a party. He was saying how his anger comes out as laughter. It comes out as like, okay, smiling, like that's absolutely fine, when in fact it's absolutely furious. And the reason why is because he doesn't feel like he can trust the anger because of the emotion, because of the story that's attached to it from years ago. So his job is to unkink the hose and let it out in a safe way that isn't directed at anyone. And the way I began to do that, and the way that I instruct clients now, is like, go out and be fucking angry. And the same applies to like sadness, like learn to grieve. It learns to, same applies to joy. The other kind of bulk, the big emotion there we haven't talked about is what we call sexual creativity. So that could be a sexual urge, it could be the creative urge, but they're kind of unified like this, the longingness or willingness to create. And that desire, like that kind of emotional push, needs to be unkinked, because otherwise it will come out. So with anger, that looks like really finding a place where being angry is allowed, where it's kind of channeled and is given. So it could be screaming into a pillow. It could be getting on an assault bike or some sort of cardio equipment and pushing. It could be sprinting up hills. It's usually something physical. And what we'll notice is our emotions want to move our body first, and then our mind clears. Your emotions are telling your body to do something. They're there under the surface, kind of reacting, and they're building up. And the way I view it is there's this neurotransmitter kind of build up. It's like producing and producing and producing. And it's hanging out there in that synaptic cleft, and it's not being taken up quick enough. And it has to be used. It has to go. And it has to be like the energy has to go somewhere. The desire, the push has to go somewhere. We can't kink our life. Like we can't hold back our life. We can't block off our life. Our emotions are there to drive us, to push us. They're a source of wisdom. They're another data point on reality. They're another kind of like, if you imagine logic is one dimension, emotions are another dimension of reality. And to be able to meld them together into a two-dimensional image of reality is one that is better than a one-dimensional dimensional kind of construct of reality. We have to learn to see reality in order to move within it. And that is how we grow. Like, so what we'll find is that until we learn to feel the emotion, we will keep putting ourselves in the situations that create that emotion over and over and over and over. So another emotion like that I seem to have done this with all emotions at different stages. It took me a long time to learn this, which is why I'm so keen to share it with you guys. Another emotion that I personally didn't like showing for a long time was fear. I wanted to be invulnerable. So I wouldn't let myself feel scared, and I wouldn't let myself feel vulnerable for years. And what transpired is that I kept on ending up in situations where fear was the right course of action to get me out of there, but I kept on tuning out because I saw it as a sign of weakness. So my path to my next level relied on me going directly through the emotion that I least wanted to feel. Going through, experiencing all the fear, the vulnerability, the terrifying nature, the inadequacy that came with fear. That was how I managed to conquer my next level, because it made me, fear is there to say, pay attention to this. There's something you're not paying attention to. You really need to look at it. It's saying, hey, look over your shoulder. That's what fear is there for. And I wasn't doing that because I saw fear as a sign of weakness. Now, fear is my greatest asset. It felt like anxiety, crippling anxiety for years. And now it's this little whisper that goes, Tom, mate, you're not paying attention to this. And it's about to go tits up. That's how it started. And now it's like, hey, Tom, there's an opportunity over here. Pay attention. And that is how the way to your next level is directly through the emotion you least want to feel. So, it's enough of me rambling. I hope you enjoyed it. If you got any questions or anything you would like me to go into, I'm more than happy to go into these kind of conversations and to provide more details. So hopefully that was useful. To the person who reached out onto my Instagram DMs and asked me to go into this, thank you, because it was a great topic and got me back on the mic and it got me thinking again and opening up. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Follow me on Instagram and all that kind of jazz. But most importantly, level up this week. Do something that stretches you, pushes you, and invites you to your next level.